Good evening. I thought I had to think about this for a while if I should make a video about this or not. And as you probably noticed, that our world has significantly changed in the last almost 3-4 weeks now. And the events which have taken place have further complicated things in our, with parts and accessibility and, just the general flow of everything got even more screwed up. And it probably is going to be even more difficult to do anything here in the near-term future. For one is, first of all, I would like to say thank you to those viewers who have left the comments about the engine oils. I appreciate this. And the reason why I'm asking this is, that is part of this video here, is that the viewership I have with our particular interest in Mercedes-Benz, the V8s, especially in how to repair them or to keep them maintained, is like that 25 to 30% of the viewers are here in the United States. That means 70 to 75% are spread out globally. And that is something which has really kind of stunned me, because it is, for the better part, you have in most countries 2 to 3%, but it is globally. That this, what you're watching right now, all of these videos I have, is they're watched globally. From the Middle East, Turkey, to Asia, Malaysia, we have Singapore, we have viewers in Japan, in Korea, in South Korea. And, and you see, we have Africa. There's quite a few people in Africa, all over the continent of Africa, all across Europe, South America, Latin America, globally. I mean, and then Russia and the Ukraine, of course, we have viewers there too. Unfortunately, now with the events, the 2% or 3% of the Russian viewers are no longer able or not interested in watching these videos. So they have dropped out as part of the sanctions. And the Ukrainian viewers we had, which was 0.5% to 1%, they have other issues to deal with than trying to fix their cars. They're trying to stay alive, and this whole thing is an unbelievable tragedy. I've never thought that we would see this after World War II to this extent in Europe, and I do not know. I don't want to get into the politics of this. I hope that this can be settled in a peaceful manner sooner than later. And the sanctions obviously having their impact. And the reason why I'm saying this now is, as you may know, is for one is I purchase items I need over eBay, and I import stuff globally. So some of the Bosch parts I needed, they came from Lithuania, and from, it was primarily Lithuania. And I had gotten 2 items out of Russia from Bosch items out of Russia. And there's a reason for this. Bosch invested pretty heavily into Russia in the late 90s, in the 2000s, because of a lot of these older European cars had gone from Germany or France, Sweden, over to Russia, where they're still active and in service or used today. So there's a much bigger base there of these older cars than anywhere else on the planet proportionally. We're seeing the same thing with Africa, because a lot of the European cars and American cars were shipped over to Africa and are being shipped. And so these are the 2 big markets, is Russia and the Russian Federation. There's a lot of cars there, and in Africa now, Central Africa, West Africa, those from East Africa down there in that middle section. And so Bosch decided years ago to build some of this stuff in Russia. And actually, interestingly enough, I got my spark plugs from my car from Ken Bergsma from Mercedes Source. These are the Bosch, I forgot now the numbers, the one which are in the manual. And they're made in Russia. And I pointed that out last year when I showed this in the video. And I said I was surprised, but I was happy, that was a year ago, that we were able to do this. And now we got this situation. How fast things can turn within 1 year. So, but the oil situation now is, if you're watching this in the United States, for us it is very easy. You know, we have a Napa, Western Auto, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, whatever you need is pretty close by. And so we have standard oils, you know, you can get liquid moly here, you can have it shipped, or you can get it at AutoZone, they can order it, O'Reilly can order it, your Napa can order it, you can pick it up there. And there's no big deal, but there's a vast majority of the people, Mercedes-Benz, fellow owners of Mercedes-Benz, cannot purchase this because it is not available. Either because it never was. They can buy Mercedes-Benz parts and they can buy Bosch parts because those parts are globally distributed. They're made all over the world. Bosch has places everywhere. And with the parts which are made in Russia, for instance, the spark plugs and other parts and sub-assemblies, they will no longer be available. So Bosch is going to have an issue not just for the 420 and 560s, but also all the way up to the current vehicles, because there's a lot of parts being made in the Russian facilities which have dropped out, and that will create a huge problem because the only facilities they have now are in Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, and the Czech Republic and Slovak Republic and Spain. And there are certain things they cannot do in these facilities. There were environmental reasons and this, that, and the other thing. So they made it in Russia because the Russians weren't that concerned about it wherever they put these plants up, somewhere out in the boondocks. And so this will shake, rattle, and roll this. I watched a Russian YouTuber just in the last couple of days who gives an updated report about the how the sanctions affecting them, and he is one of the people who is not in favor of the war or the special military operations, as their government calls it. I have to be here. These, from what my understanding is, YouTube allows still people in Russia to watch these videos, but if we say the wrong thing, then these videos are going to be censored. So this is an unpolitical channel. And I'm not interested to debate this, whether this is now correct this way or that way. For me, what is important is to get the information to the people who need the information, no matter where they are, under what circumstances, it makes no difference. So now these people are in Russia now up the shit creek. And what he said, he's an economist, is that the sanctions are coming like a tidal wave, like a tsunami. The earthquake happened 3 weeks ago, but the tsunami is still out about 6 hours, and they're expecting the full impact of this to hit by the end of April, early May, and that's when this thing is going to blow up in Russia economically. The fallout in this is going to be globally felt because of the manufacturing which is happening there, conducted by Western companies. Car parts sector. I mean, there's so many different sectors. You got the agricultural people there with their fertilizer and basically anything that has to do with chemical manufacturing or where particular chemical processes are needed. Those parts are made there. And this is all going to evaporate into nothing here if they don't come to some form of a peace or whatever over there. And then, of course, you know, with the Ukraine, it's the same story, because they're equally involved in manufacturing and on these levels, especially like galvanizing and you know, that sort of stuff, and chrome plating and those things. Basically all the stuff the West didn't want anymore and the Chinese are not that good at, so all of the stuff moved into Eastern Europe basically, and primarily into Russia and into the Ukraine, and this is now completely out. Besides of grain production and wheat and that sort of stuff. So we haven't seen this. This is just merely unfolding. But with the oil, I wanted to say is the is that 70% at least of my viewers, they just cannot go to a store. If you with the Europeans, it might be another 10-15%. So we're looking maybe at 60% of the viewers cannot get liquid moly. They have to go to a local brand, wherever, in whatever country they are. They have no choice, they're going to have to buy what they can get. And I thought about this, and that's why I thought that if you guys leave a comment, of what oil you're using, then it might be helpful to someone else as an alternative. And if you write in, why you're using this, why you think it is good, it will be helpful to other people. This channel here is primarily concerned with the upkeep or the preservation of a classic vehicle, in this case the 420s and 560s primarily. And that is it's a global thing. It's not just here in Kansas City or in the United States or in Europe a little bit. Between the United States and Europe, we're actually the minority in this. Globally, it is far outweighed by about 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 2 to 1. That's what I'm trying to point out. And of course, what I also understand now with YouTube, my channel has no monetization because I don't have enough, subscriptions here. And I don't get paid for this. I'm doing this as a service to the community, to other Mercedes-Benz owners, to fellow Mercedes-Benz fans like myself, and that's the primary purpose. But from what I understand is all these YouTubers now in Russia are no longer getting paid by YouTube because of the sanctions. On the other hand, is you still have YouTubers in the Ukraine. I'm watching 2 of those too. The one guy, he basically was living in Kiev, and with his girlfriend, they both got channels. They get an average of 500,000 views, so they're making pretty good money. They're able to get their money. He is not fighting in the Ukrainian army. He is somewhere now hiding in the bushes there somewhere, in his parents' house out in the Pampa, in the boondocks. He hasn't enlisted yet, so he's not doing anything for his country except that he's going online and getting PayPal donations. I mean, if you look at this whole thing, this is absolutely insane, this whole monetization thing of this here to begin with. But this is basically where this is at. So the Russians are trying to make money with it to circumvent the collapsing ruble. The Ukrainians keep making money with this while the other people are dying in this whole thing, and they're still putting YouTube videos out from the Ukraine, not so much about the war, but about themselves and what they're doing or not doing. And so everyone got their own little agenda going, and the primary underlying reason in all of this is basically to make money. And I'm looking at this, I'm just totally appalled by this, looking at the human tragedy and this stuff. Both of my grandfathers fought in the Operation Barbarossa back then, and they came back, and my mother's grandfather, my mother's father, he was a officer. So we went through all these battles, and the particulars, especially in the Ukraine, since the Operation Offensive of Barbarossa basically started there and then came to a grinding halt in Stalingrad with the 6th Army, with the encirclement by the Red Army back then. And there's a lot of similarities you're seeing now in this war and in the strategy the Russians operate. I would not give you a prediction of which side is going to win this, but I would be on a rather cautious about the Russian offensive in this. There's probably more to come, and I don't know if they're going to settle this very quickly, or if this is going to be like what you had a repeat of 1942, 1943 when Stalingrad was encircled, and then the whole thing going this way, because the way the Red Army operated was by encirclement. They would go encircle, then burn everything down basically, and then they move on and encircle, and it just goes like that. So they don't do a blitzkrieg kind of operation, they do an encirclement operation, which is by far more time consuming, and it is very hard on personnel and equipment. But they had fast resources back then in terms of soldiers and of equipment, which came out of the fast plains up there out in the nowhere past the Ural Mountains, where they're producing the stuff in Siberia and all the way up to Novosibirsk. And they can put trains together which are pretty long, and the Wehrmacht got a good lecture in this. So this is why I'm somewhat careful. I do not know on how far Mr. Putin is going to go to this extent or not. The casualties we have seen, whether that is 10,000 or 15,000 Russian soldiers, pales in comparison to this, what they had in the Second World War on the Red Army side. It was also the casualties, as bad as the numbers are for the Ukrainians, is small compared to what the Wehrmacht orchestrated in the Ukraine when they entered there with Operation Barbarossa and everything else what came with it. So, but the underlying issues here, it is the whole car parts thing for primarily anything that uses Bosch or Mercedes-Benz. Other parts not so much, but Bosch especially was so heavily invested into the Eastern European countries, especially over there in Ukraine and in Russia, that is going to be difficult. So we will see on how this is going to develop. Otherwise, on my front here, there's not much new. I just wanted to point this out. And I would like to first of all say thank you to every viewer from wherever you're coming or dialing in or watching. And I hope that you get the most out of the channels, the most amount of information, and that you can fix your Mercedes-Benz and it runs and it gives you the joy it was meant to be, no matter where you come, what your nationality is, or what your background is. So that is my hopes, and I hope that we will have peace pretty soon on this planet, and that the all of this negative stuff, all of this bad stuff comes to an end. And my heart is with everyone who is afflicted by this, and I can feel your pain. And one thing I have to say, that this would ever come out of Russia after 1945, I would have never thought that. But, you know, every time you think you have seen it all, there's sure someone else there who's going to tell you something different. Well, with that, happy Mercedesing, and I hope I will see you soon.